Please allow me to also acknowledge the Darral people, their elders past, present and emerging. I would like to add my welcome to those acknowledged earlier by Ken. And I thank all our guests for honouring us with your presence here tonight, particularly those who have travelled some distance to do so in pretty ordinary weather. Please allow me to also thank all those responsible for this celebration tonight, particularly the members of the Clem team and all those who have prepared and were involved in the liturgy, and especially Mrs Tony Sillis, Principal of Good Samaritan Primary School here at Fairy Meadow, and the staff of this excellent school for your warmth and hospitality. Thank you. May I also extend my particular thanks to Mrs Amy Samet and Mrs Colleen Easton for their generous and committed organisation and leadership. I am grateful to the staff of our schools for also travelling from the breadth and width of our growing diocese to make such a strong statement of unity and spirit during Catholic Education Week. My particular thanks to Bishop Brian and the clergy of the diocese for your support tonight. Bishop Brian, thank you for your obvious connection to and affection for all those who work within this important ministry of Catholic education in the diocese. Please allow me to acknowledge Bishop Brian and join me with an acknowledgement of thanks. When I was working in the Diocese of Bathurst, I remember opening a toilet block with Bishop Doherty at St Michael's Primary School in Dunedoo. Bishop Doherty was approaching his silver jubilee as Bishop of Bathurst, and I said to him, "You know you've made it when you get to open a dunny in Dunedoo." It would be disingenuous of me and to the community of Dunedoo if I did not mention that Dunedoo is Wiradjuri for Black Swan. At that event, I was interviewed on local radio by some of the students from the school. They asked me a relatively innocent question that took me by surprise. They asked me, "Why do you work for Catholic education?" And the reason the question took me by surprise was because there was a confronting depth to the seemingly innocent question from a child that I wasn't quite prepared for. In answering the question, I believe I captured why I worked for the Ministry of Catholic Education. I said to those students that if I didn't work in Catholic education, it would only be half my story. Because in working for Catholic education, I get to live my faith, and my life and work is richer for it. In the pastoral letter, Catholic Schools at a Crossroads, the Bishops of New South Wales and the ACT say that the Catholic school system is one of the jewels in the crown of the Catholic community in our region. With few parallels overseas, it has provided high quality education to generations of young Australians and has been a major arm of the Church's engagement with young people. I do agree with the bishops insofar that they consider Catholic education to be a precious thing to be treasured. But when I think of Catholic education, I think of it more like a precious gift, like our fragile environment. And just like we must be good stewards of our ecology now and for the future, we must provide the same attention to this equally precious and fragile treasure called Catholic education. When I look back at the origins of Catholic education in this country, I am in awe of the men and women, religious and lay, who have worked tirelessly to provide us with this intergenerational gift. We do stand on the shoulders of those who have gone before us, and now, in this time, our time in this place, it is our responsibility to ensure that Catholic education meets the needs of young people today and the next generation. The theologian Richard Lenan suggests to us working in Catholic education that we should be able to sniff out our mission. And I would go further, that if we are going to be authentic to our mission and ministry, we must develop an exquisite nose for the suffering of others and respond with Catholic education. But how can we develop that nose to detect the suffering of others? May I ask you just to indulge me for a moment? Could you please raise your hand if you are a parent here tonight, grandparent or carer of a young person? Please keep your hand raised. Join them and raise your hand if you have a teaching qualification. Don't put your hands down yet. Please raise your hand if you work in a school or with young people in some capacity. Take a look around at all the teachers of our young people here tonight. Please put your hands down. Of the many times Jesus was addressed directly in the Gospel, he was called teacher more than any other name. The teaching of Jesus had a power and effect with which the influence of no other teacher can ever be compared. Those faithful men and women who came before us developed their nose for the suffering of others by looking to Jesus as the model and guide. Today, we too can look to Jesus in Catholic education as the ultimate teacher, the teacher of teachers. The ministry of Catholic education has such meaning and purpose because teaching has an extraordinary moral depth and is one of humankind's most excellent and creative activities. For the teacher does not write on inanimate material, but on the very spirits of human beings. But this is not the only writing we do. Each one of us, whether in the classroom or working in the office or on the sports field or anywhere else, is helping to write our story every day. We are all authors of our collective story. We are all, every day, defining what it means to be a Catholic school. Our story is not written in ink, but in our actions. And we owe it to our students, to each other and to the future to write this story well. We know the story we want to write. We know the story we want to tell. But it's up to us to create that narrative, conscious of the grand narrative that is the good news of Jesus Christ. Whether the Catholic school achieves its purpose, whether we write well on the spirits of the young people in our care, depends chiefly on the people working in the school community. In recent times, I've devoted some of my energy and attention to listening to the voice of students in our Catholic schools. And in listening to them, I have discovered that they need us more than ever. They need our Catholic schools more than ever. Our young people are looking for teachers who are interested in them as person and learner. They are looking to build authentic relationships with significant adults in their lives who are prepared to listen to them. I have learnt from my conversations that these young people are serious about their learning. They are curious about their faith, and they are deeply concerned about their well-being. They place their fragile trust in us to help them with their problems. And let me tell you, they do not suffer fools lightly. They have high expectations of us, and so they should. We live in enormously complex and challenging times. They are times of great threat and great opportunity. Pope Francis reminds us of this ever-present reality. He says, "Things are no longer in their place. Our previous ways of explaining the world and its relationships, good and bad, no longer seem to work. Things we thought that would never happen, or that we never thought we would see, we are experiencing now. And we dare not even imagine the future. That which appeared normal to us, family, the church, society, the world, will probably no longer seem that way. We cannot simply wait for what we have been experiencing to pass, under the illusion that things will return to being how they were before. None of us have the tidy answers to the wicked problems that we all confront in our world, but we are guided by our faith, our values, and our Catholic worldview. Tonight, Bishop Brian commissioned me as Director of Schools. He did not commission me with a certificate or a plaque. He commissioned me with the Scriptures. Contained in these books is the good news from Jesus the teacher that he expects me to promulgate and amplify among our community of schools. So let's pause for a moment and consider Jesus the teacher. Except for the resurrection, Jesus' teaching on Holy Thursday, where he gave all Christians a new mandate, is possibly one of the most important, complex and profound lessons for all Christians, but especially for the Catholic teacher. Like all good teachers, Jesus was one never to miss the teachable moment. He models three things and calls us to mission and ministry in his ways. He shares a meal. He offers table fellowship, a way of reminding us about him and the hospitality and outreach we must offer to others, especially the stranger in our midst. He models servant leadership by washing the feet of others. Finally, he provides a new mandate, to love one another as I have loved you. I'd like to talk a little bit more about love, because I have grown weary of hearing about hate and violence. My hope for you is that you will fall in love and stay in love with your God. My hope for you is that you will fall in love and stay in love with Catholic education. Falling in love is a mysterious thing. I understand that love at first sight does happen. But if I asked you, could you tell me the precise moment that you fell in love with the most significant person in your life? I suggest that that would be unlikely, because most of us fall in love gradually, not instantly. And once you fall in love, you make a commitment to someone and you abandon yourself into a future that is totally unknown. So I hope you love your work in Catholic education. I hope that you commit yourself to an active service to our young people each and every day, because they need you and they deserve the best, your best. And you may fight and bicker and argue with those who test your love, but I hope you fall in love and stay in love with Catholic education, because liberating the hearts and minds and spirits of young people is truly noble work. You'll receive a card tonight. Please refer to it often and let it remind you of the meaning and purpose of what you do. I look forward to working with you as we grow our community of schools in the Diocese of Wollongong to offer the highest quality Catholic education possible, because the young people in our schools deserve nothing less. Thank you.